This is without a doubt one of the favorite parts of the boat building process. I really enjoy. And this is laying down the clear coat over the paint. I've done about 5, 6, maybe 7 coats of the fluorescent green here. And in my previous video I showed you how I did that. And what I'm doing now is I'm applying the clear coat finish over top. And viewers of the website and of some of my videos will certainly know that I'm a huge fan of this stuff right here. This TranStar Jam and Clear. It's not specifically meant for boats, but holy jumping, does it ever give a great finish. And I've used it on a number of boats and it stands up. So I am mucking away here and sanding down and sanding down. It's difficult to see from the video, but I've applied about 4 or 5 light coats of this Jam and Clear. And between each coat, I lightly sand it up with this 600 grit wet sandpaper. You probably can't see the 600, but trust me, this is 600 grit paper here. And with each coat I apply, the finish gets smoother and smoother and smoother. Here's some other sandpaper I've been using. I bought this at my local auto body shop where I get the Jam and Clear. And this is 600 grit right here as well. So all I'm doing between coats is I'm just sanding down the rough spots. And wet sanding, of course, allows you to get a very nice finish. And it also prevents any sort of crap that gets built up on the sandpaper here. So like I said, I've got about 5 or 6 coats of this Jam and Clear on. And I'm building it up slowly. There's still some rough spots on here. I'll probably get about 10 coats on in total. And slowly build up the layers. And I find I have to build it up a very small bit at a time, because if I put this on too thick, obviously it's going to run, but for some reason it bubbles up a little bit, or it I don't know, it wrinkles. I guess that's the best way to say it. If it goes on too thick, it'll kind of bite into the under coats of this stuff, and it'll wrinkle up, and that's when things get really bad. So on this video, the surface looks pretty glossy now, but trust me, once I finish putting on more coats and buff it up, it'll really shine, and it will give me a very smooth, glass-like, highly reflective finish, and that's kind of what I'm after here. So I'm going to finish sanding a little more, dry it out, and then show you how I am applying this clear coat. Alright, so here I am. I'm shaking up my can of Jam and Clear here. Got my hat on, got my mask on, because this stuff gets a little rich. Again, I'm not wearing a full respirator because I've got a lot of wind that goes through, and I've got the door shut right now just so the video is going to show up a little better here, but normally I'd have the wind going all the way through. This stuff's great. Lots of warnings on the back. You gotta read this stuff. You gotta be really careful with it. Like I said, I get this at my local auto body supply shop. You can't get it at any other place. It's a very I don't know, specialty item, I suppose. So like any spray thing, you gotta shake it up a lot here. That's all I'm doing. I just do one pass. Trick for me is to build the coats up really slowly so I don't get any runs or sags. The other thing I try and do too is I try and get this thing moving before I actually press the spray nozzle. That way I don't end up with any puddling. So I'll get it moving first and then put the spray down. Here's the other thing I love about this stuff. It flashes over in 5 minutes, and I can recoat in about another 5 minutes. And I love that. I don't usually wet sand it until it's had a chance to dry for, I don't know, a couple of hours. But you can build up coats. Like every 5 or 10 minutes you can put another coat up and build it up and build it up and build it up. So it looks really, really glossy right now. I'm going to wet sand it. That'll dull it down again. I'll build up, build up, build up. And then I'll show you how to get that mirror finish on later. And that's using finer and finer sandpaper. This was a 600 grit sandpaper. I'll go up to a 1200, a 2400, and even a 3000 grit sandpaper. And then I put the polishing compound on. And the great thing about doing it this way, and this is a problem boat builders have with varnish, is they put on that final coat of varnish and then like a fly or a mosquito will come down and just like BAM right in the middle of it, and then it's ruined. But the beauty of this is I can sand off. If there's a fly that comes on here, I can sand it off and build it up. And then on the final coat, it's like a polishing compound, and it smooths it down like glass, and it looks just amazing. So I'm going to show you that later. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish this can off. This is my second can. I've already done 5 or 6 coats with this can, and this can's empty. I'll finish this can off, and I might even buy a third can and build it up and build it up and build it up. But this is how I get my mirror finish. It'll be so shiny. I'll be able to see my beautiful face in it. So I'm going to let this sit up, flash over for 5 minutes, and continue the process. But that's how it's working away. Well, look at this. Look at where we are right now. I've actually lost count with how many coats of this gem and clear I've applied. I would just sort of come home after work and spray some more on. And I'd probably do, I don't know, 2 coats a night, let it flash for a long time. And as you can see, it's getting pretty glossy. If I had to guess, I'd say I've probably put on about 12 coats. And they're very light mist coats. But you can see the shine is coming along quite nicely. And I really haven't done a lot of sanding between coats. Every now and then I'd roughen it up a little bit and then spray on some more. What I want to show you guys right now is how to get that perfectly smooth mirror finish. And if you guys are thinking, oh, it looks pretty smooth right now, well, there's a very, very fine texture, and it's hard to see on the GoPro camera here, but there is. So this is where I start to break out the 600 and the 1200 and the 2000 grit wet sandpaper. So there's really nothing special involved. It's just, like I said, it's just a matter of patience. I'm going to wet the deck down here. It's not bad. I can see a little texturing on the surface here. It's not a glass finish, but it's pretty good. So the trick is you want to sand it, but you don't want to take all the clear coat off. So I'm just going to use circles here and do a little light sanding. I know I'm cutting into the clear coat because as I sand, I kind of get this milky surface, and that's the jam and clear. Like I said, I don't want to sand too heavy or I'm going to take the whole thing off. I just want to take off these minute bumps. So here's my 2000 grit paper right here. And I'm going to sand it. And there's very little surface friction now. But once the deck is dry, you can actually see where the surface has become hazy and cloudy. And then that's when I'm going to put on the polishing compound. Because I'm sanding it, I'm going to take the shine away, but the polishing compound will bring it back. I decided to show you this because the jam and clear is very thick on this middle section here. You can actually see the milky residue coming off, and when you see that, you know you're cutting in and really smoothing things out. There it is right there. And that's what you want to see. And as soon as you start to see that, you know it's getting really smooth. The other thing too is don't trust your eyes to establish if the surface is smooth. Run your hand across it. Your hand can actually feel any imperfections better than you can see them. And I'm a big fan of doing this as well. So like I said, I'm going to continue on here. Start with my 600 grit, work up to the 2000, and then I'm going to work with the polishing compound. All right, here's where it gets fun. I love this part of the finishing. Let me just do a quick recap here. I have wet sanded the surface of this first with 600 grit wet sandpaper, and then I finished it off with 1200 grit sandpaper. And as it dries out, the surface becomes cloudy or not shiny at all. And as usual, it's difficult to see, but it's very kind of frosty looking. I suppose that would be a good way to say the surface. It's smooth. I haven't sanded it completely smooth because there's some sparkles. And if it were totally smooth, there'd be no sparkling on it. But for the most part, it's as smooth as I want to get it. Now, in order to bring the gloss back, what I'm going to do is I am going to buff it up. And I have my really cheap Canadian Tire $19 buffer here. But the thing that's really going to do the trick is this stuff right here. And I used this before on the Micromax that I made. It's Ultra Cutting Cream. And it's the equivalent of about a 4,500 grit wet sandpaper. So what I do is I put some of this on the surface and turn on my buffing doohickey thing, and it brings the shine right back. So I'm going to show you how I do this, and hopefully we can do a comparison. There! Remember, everything looks shiny when it's wet, but when it's dry and it's shiny, then you know you've hit the sweet spot. Well, check out that shine. I gotta say, that's pretty cool looking. Still have to do a little more polishing, but that's what you end up with. Gotta say, it's not perfect, but it's good enough, and that's as much as I'm gonna do. So, that finishes up my demonstration on applying Jam and Clear and getting a really cool mirror finish. This one's not exactly mirror finish, but it's what I want to do for now. I'm not after like highly reflective, but it'll work. So I'm going to work on getting the steering wheel hooked up, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. And the other thing I'm working on right now, I'm going to show you, is the trim tab. So have a look at this. Here's the reinforcing bits I did for the motorboard, and this is the old original trim tab assembly that came with the boat when I purchased it, and I'm just kind of modifying it a little bit. It's going to go on the back right here, and I've done a tutorial, a photo tutorial on trim tabs for a couple of other boats. But I'm going to get this one hooked back up again. I still have a little more wiggling around to do to make it fit, but that's what's going to be next. So stay tuned. It's getting really, really close to being finished. Woo!